Hello, I'm Art of BT. In this documentary, we'll be discussing the Epstein files, a case that has captured the world's attention. This is a very in-depth investigation and research project. I recommend watching the video until the end. The Epstein case, a comprehensive investigative documentary, an in-depth analysis of one of the most consequential criminal cases of the 21st century. Executive overview. Jeffrey Edward Epstein, 1953 to 2019, was an American financier who became the subject of international scrutiny following revelations of systematic abuse of minors spanning decades. His case exposed critical failures in the American justice system, raised questions about elite networks and institutional accountability, and sparked global conversations about power, privilege, and the protection of vulnerable populations. Epstein's significance extends beyond his criminal conduct. His connections to prominent figures in finance, politics, academia, and entertainment, combined with a controversial 2008 plea agreement that allowed him to avoid federal prosecution, made his case emblematic of perceived inequalities in justice. His death by apparent suicide in federal custody in August 2019, while awaiting trial on federal charges, generated widespread skepticism and demands for systemic reform. This documentary report synthesizes verified information from court records, investigative journalism, documentary evidence, and institutional inquiries to present a comprehensive analysis of the Epstein case and its ramifications. 2. Chronological timeline. Early life and education, 1953-1970s. Jeffrey Edward Epstein was born on January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York, to Seymour George Epstein and Pauline Paula Stolovsky Epstein. His parents were working-class Jews, his father employed by the New York City Department of Parks, his mother working as a school aide. The family lived in Seagate, a gated community at the western edge of Coney Island that served as a middle-class enclave for Jewish families. Neighbors remembered Epstein's parents as quiet and humble, with friends describing Paula as a dedicated mother and homemaker despite working full-time. Epstein grew up alongside his younger brother Mark in an environment shaped by post-immigrant Jewish identity and modest means. Though Seagate's gated nature led outsiders to perceive its residents as more affluent than they were. From an early age, Epstein demonstrated exceptional mathematical ability. He attended public school, 188, then Mark Twain Junior High School, where he was known as Epi to friends who considered him sweet and generous. He also displayed musical talent, learning piano, and being regarded as a skilled musician. Epstein graduated from Lafayette High School in 1969 at age 16, 2 years ahead of schedule, reflecting his academic precocity. Higher education and early career, 1970s. Following high school, Epstein enrolled at Cooper Union in Manhattan, taking advanced mathematics classes and later transferred to New York University, but never completed a degree at either institution. In 1974, at age 21, Epstein began working as a physics and mathematics teacher at the Dalton School on Manhattan's Upper East Side despite having no college degree. The Dalton School was an elite private institution serving children of New York's wealthiest and most influential families. Donald Barr, father of future U.S. Attorney General William Barr, served as headmaster until June 1974 and was known for unconventional hiring practices. Epstein began teaching in September 1974, 3 months after Barr's departure. Former students recalled Epstein as a charismatic yet unconventional figure. He dressed flamboyantly with a thick New York accent and high energy. However, multiple former students reported that Epstein displayed inappropriate behavior toward female students, paying them constant attention and appearing at student parties. In a 2009 deposition, when asked if he had dated anyone who was previously a student at Dalton, Epstein invoked his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights and declined to answer. During his tenure, Epstein tutored the children of Alan Ace Greenberg, CEO of Bear Stearns Investment Bank, and impressed a parent during a conference who recommended him to Greenberg. In June 1976, Epstein was dismissed from Dalton for poor performance, and Greenberg subsequently offered him a position at Bear Stearns. Financial rise, 1976-1990s. Epstein joined Bear Stearns in 1976 as a junior assistant to a floor trader, swiftly moving up to become an options trader in the special products division, where he advised the bank's wealthiest clients on tax mitigation strategies. By age 27 in 1980, Cosmopolitan magazine featured him as Bachelor of the Month, and Bear Stearns named him a limited partner. However, in 1981, the company conducted an internal investigation concerning a questionable personal loan and tips Epstein provided to a girlfriend about stock IPOs. The SEC also questioned him about insider trading, though no charges were filed. Bear Stearns suspended and fined Epstein, who denied wrongdoing and ultimately quit the firm. After leaving Bear Stearns, Epstein's financial activities became increasingly opaque. In August 1981, he founded Intercontinental Assets Group Incorporated, describing himself as a high-level bounty hunter who recovered embezzled funds. He told acquaintances he worked for governments and wealthy clients to recover stolen money. The pivotal relationship in Epstein's wealth accumulation came in the late 1980s. In 1986, Epstein met Leslie Wexner, chairman and CEO of L Brands, Victoria's Secret, The Limited, Bath & Body Works, through insurance executive Robert Meister in Palm Beach. A year later, Epstein became Wexner's financial advisor. In July 1991, Wexner granted Epstein full power of attorney over his affairs, allowing him to hire people, sign checks, buy and sell properties, borrow money, and execute any legally binding action on Wexner's behalf. This extraordinary arrangement gave Epstein unprecedented access to Wexner's billion-dollar fortune. In 1988, Epstein founded J. Epstein & Company, a consulting firm providing money management services exclusively to individuals with net worth exceeding $1 billion. Wexner remained his primary and most publicly known client, though Epstein cultivated relationships with other ultra-wealthy individuals. Leon Black, chairman of Apollo Global Management, paid Epstein $158 million for tax and estate planning services over their relationship. According to later analysis, Epstein's two main businesses, Financial Trust Company and Southern Trust Company, received over $800 million in revenue between 1999 and 2018, consisting of $490 million in fees and $310 million from investment returns. Due to U.S. Virgin Islands tax exemptions, his corporation saved $300 million in taxes. Criminal investigations begin 2005 to 2008. March 2005, Palm Beach Police Department opened a criminal investigation after a 14-year-old girl's parents reported that Epstein had paid her for a massage that led to inappropriate activity. Detective Joe Carey led the investigation, which quickly expanded as one victim led to another, with detectives finding credible and believable testimony. Investigation expands. 2005 to 2006 investigators discovered that teenage girls, some as young as 14, were recruited to Epstein's Palm Beach mansion, where they were paid $200 to $300 for massages that became inappropriate encounters. Girls were then paid to recruit more victims, with Epstein specifically requesting younger girls. Federal prosecutors later determined the network operated from at least 2002 until 2005, creating a vast network of underage victims in both New York and Florida. May 2006, Palm Beach police filed a probable cause affidavit recommending Epstein be charged with 4 counts of unlawful activity with minors and 1 count of abuse. July 2006, the FBI began its own investigation, codenamed Operation Leap Year. Simultaneously, on July 27, 2006, Epstein was arrested by Palm Beach police on state felony charges of procuring a minor for inappropriate conduct and solicitation, posted $3,000 bond, and was released. Controversial investigation dynamics. Former police chief Michael Ryder stated that Epstein's defense team appeared to know details about the investigation before they were made public, suggesting information leakage from the state attorney's office to defense lawyers. Epstein assembled a high-powered legal team, including Kenneth Starr, Alan Dershowitz, and Roy Black. The 2008 plea deal, sweetheart deal. May 2007, an assistant U.S. attorney submitted a draft 60-count federal indictment against Epstein along with a detailed prosecution memo to her supervisors. Federal investigators had identified at least 36 victims. September 24, 2007, Epstein signed a non-prosecution agreement, NPA, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, one day before prosecutors were prepared to indict him. U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta approved this secret non-prosecution agreement, allowing Epstein to avoid federal charges despite substantial evidence. This was the only non-prosecution agreement Acosta implemented during his entire tenure as U.S. Attorney. Terms of the NPA granted immunity from all federal criminal charges to Epstein for named co-conspirators and any unnamed potential co-conspirators. Prosecutors agreed not to tell Epstein's victims about the NPA, which was filed under seal. Epstein agreed to plead guilty to state charges, register as an offender, serve 18 months in county jail, and pay monetary damages to victims. The agreement essentially shut down an ongoing FBI probe into whether there were more victims and other powerful people involved. June 30, 2008, Epstein appeared in state court and pled guilty to felony solicitation and procurement of minors, receiving consecutive terms of 12 months and 6 months incarceration, followed by 12 months of community control. Incarceration. Epstein served 13 months in Palm Beach County Jail with work release, allowing him to leave for 12 hours a day to work at a foundation he had recently incorporated. He was released in summer 2009. Legal violations. The decision to keep the deal secret violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act of 2004, CVRA, which requires notifying victims of the progress of federal criminal cases. In 2019, a Florida judge ruled that prosecutors broke the law by not notifying Epstein's victims. Assessment. Former federal prosecutors described the plea deal as completely unprecedented and completely indefensible, noting they had never seen a deal that lenient in such a case. A 2020 Justice Department Office of Professional Responsibility investigation concluded that Acosta's decision constituted poor judgment. 2019 arrest and federal charges. November 2018. The Miami Herald published Julie Brown's Pulitzer Prize-nominated investigative series Perversion of Justice, exposing Epstein's 2008 plea deal. The revelations sparked renewed public interest. July 6, 2019, federal agents from the FBI and NYPD's Crimes Against Children Task Force arrested Epstein when his private jet landed at Teterboro Airport, New Jersey, upon his return from Paris. July 8, 2019, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York unsealed a federal indictment charging Epstein with one count related to minors, maximum 40 years, and one count of conspiracy, maximum 5 years. Indictment allegations. The indictment alleged that between 2002 and 2005, Epstein exploited and abused dozens of underage girls by enticing them to engage in inappropriate acts in exchange for money at his New York mansion and Palm Beach estate. Epstein worked with employees and associates to ensure a steady supply of minor victims and paid victims to recruit other underage girls, creating a vast network that often operated on a daily basis. Evidence seized. Agents searching Epstein's Manhattan residence found thousands of photos of individuals, including at least one believed to be a minor. Bail denied. Federal Judge Richard M. Berman denied bail on July 18, 2019, describing Epstein as a danger to the community and a serious flight risk given his wealth, private jets, and international connections. Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, in Manhattan. Acosta resignation. On July 12, 2019, Alex Acosta resigned as Labor Secretary, stating the Epstein matter was a distraction from his agency's work. Death in custody, August 10, 2019. August 10, 2019, 6:30 a.m. Guards claim to have found Epstein unresponsive in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City. After reportedly performing CPR, he was transported in cardiac arrest to New York Downtown Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased at 6:39 a.m. Official findings. New York City's chief medical examiner Barbara Sampson conducted a 4-hour autopsy and determined the cause of death. The Justice Department Inspector General and FBI also concluded Epstein's death was self-inflicted. Circumstances and failures. Epstein spent 36 days at MCC. 2 weeks before his death, he was placed on watch for 31 hours after what jail officials said was an incident. The 2 workers assigned to guard him the night he died were working overtime, one working a 5th straight day of overtime, the other working mandatory overtime. Epstein's cellmate had been transferred earlier, and jail officials failed to assign him a new roommate, leaving him alone in violation of protocol. The 2 correctional officers, Michael Thomas and Tovin Noel, failed to complete more than 75 mandatory checks on Epstein overnight. They were later charged with falsifying records and avoiding jail time in a plea deal after admitting guilt. Systemic problems. The Justice Department Inspector General found numerous and serious failures by MCC staff, including staffing shortages, failures in managing inmates at risk, and widespread disregard of Bureau of Prisons policies. System deficiencies resulted in nearly all cameras in and around the special housing unit failing to record video, starting in late July 2019 through Epstein's death. Public skepticism. Due to violations of normal jail procedures, camera malfunctions, and Epstein's claims to have compromising information about powerful figures, his death generated widespread speculation. Public opinion polls show only 16% of Americans believe the official determination, 45% believe he was harmed by others, and 39% are unsure. Disputed evidence. Epstein's defense team hired pathologist Michael Baden to observe the autopsy. They later stated the evidence was far more consistent with alternative explanations than the official determination. However, Inspector General Michael Horowitz directly addressed speculation, stating that while there were failures at multiple levels and Epstein received special treatment, the official determination stands with no evidence of criminality. Legal outcome. Following Epstein's death, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed to dismiss the pending indictment. On August 27, 2019, Judge Richard Berman held a hearing where more than a dozen victims spoke, despite the case being over. Post-death investigations and prosecutions. Ghislaine Maxwell, key accomplice. Ghislaine Maxwell, a 58-year-old British socialite and Epstein's longtime associate, was arrested on July 2, 2020, and charged in Manhattan federal court with multiple counts, including conspiracy and transporting minors with intent to engage in illegal activity. Trial and conviction. Following a 1-month jury trial, Maxwell was found guilty on December 29, 2021, on 5 out of 6 counts. Criminal conduct. From at least 1994 through 2004, Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and participated in Epstein's abuse of minor girls, some as young as 14, by helping recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims. Maxwell befriended victims by asking about their lives and taking them on shopping trips, normalized inappropriate behavior by discussing topics and being present during encounters, and in some instances participated directly in the abuse. Sentencing. On June 28, 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 240 months, 20 years, in prison and fined $750,000. Judge Allison Nathan emphasized that Maxwell was not being punished as a proxy for Epstein, but for her own instrumental role in the abuse. She is scheduled to be released on July 17, 2037. Appeals. Maxwell appealed her conviction, arguing that Epstein's 2007 non-prosecution agreement with the Southern District of Florida, which granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators, should have protected her. On September 17, 2024, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals upheld her convictions and sentence. On October 6, 2024, the Supreme Court declined to hear her appeal. Recent developments. In December 2025, Maxwell filed a petition asking the federal court to vacate or correct her conviction, claiming substantial new evidence has emerged demonstrating she did not receive a fair trial, including allegations of juror misconduct and government suppression of evidence. 3. Network and associations. Documented association. Epstein cultivated an extensive network spanning finance, politics, academia, entertainment, and royalty. Court documents unsealed in 2024 reference former presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, magician David Copperfield, Prince Andrew, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, actor Kevin Spacey, lawyer Alan Dershowitz, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, and former Vice President Al Gore, among others. Critical context. The fact that people were named in these documents doesn't mean any face allegations or evidence of wrongdoing. Most prominent individuals were already known to have links to Epstein through previous court cases or media disclosures, and most have denied wrongdoing or knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities. Leslie Wexner, primary financial relationship. Wexner, founder of L Brands, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, met Epstein in the mid-1980s through insurance executive Robert Meister. Within a year, Epstein became Wexner's financial advisor. In July 1991, Wexner granted Epstein full power of attorney and instated him as a trustee on the Wexner Foundation Board. Epstein had sweeping powers over Wexner's finances, philanthropy, and private life, including the ability to hire people, sign checks, buy and sell properties, and borrow money on Wexner's behalf. This arrangement gave Epstein control over valuable assets and shifted them from Wexner to Epstein's control. Wexner claims he severed ties with Epstein in 2007 after discovering that Epstein had misappropriated or stolen several $100 million from his family. Epstein returned $100 million as part of a private settlement in early 2008. Recent developments. An internal FBI document from August 2019 labeled Wexner as a co-conspirator of Epstein alongside Ghislaine Maxwell and other known partners. Wexner is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee on February 18, 2026, about his connections with Epstein. Bill Clinton political connection. Clinton's relationship with Epstein began in the early 1990s and continued into the early 2000s. After donating to Clinton's 1991 presidential campaign, Epstein donated to the White House Historical Association in 1993 and attended a donors reception hosted by President and First Lady Clinton. During Clinton's post-presidential period, he took multiple flights on Epstein's Boeing 727 private jet, commonly known as Lolita Express, for Clinton Foundation charity trips in 2002 and 2003. Flight log records indicated Clinton's name on at least 17 legs of Epstein's flights, including a high-profile 2002 trip to Africa with actors Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker to visit HIV/AIDS project sites. In testimony, witness Johanna Schoberg stated that Epstein made comments about Clinton, though she did not accuse Clinton of illegal action and said she never met him personally. Clinton's office stated in 2019 that the former president did not know about Epstein's crimes and had not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade. FBI files released in January 2026 revealed that the FBI had secretly investigated Epstein-related allegations against Clinton, with some being unverified and described as not credible. Epstein invoked the Fifth Amendment when asked about his relationship with Clinton during a September 2016 deposition. Neither Clinton nor any other president has been criminally charged in relation to Epstein, and authorities have lodged no evidence of wrongdoing. Donald Trump, business and social connection. In a 2002 interview, Trump told New York Magazine that Epstein was a great guy and they had known one another for 15 years, adding that Epstein liked beautiful women as much as he did, and many of them are on the younger side. President Trump is mentioned more than 38,000 times in release files. Trump has said the release absolves him of wrongdoing and that he stopped speaking with Epstein after learning Epstein was bringing young girls to the spa at his Mar-a-Lago resort. In recordings made by author Michael Wolff in August 2017, Epstein provided commentary on Trump, describing him as charming and always fun, capable of extraordinary salesmanship. However, Epstein did not accuse Trump of any wrongdoing in these recordings. Trump has never been criminally charged in relation to Epstein. Prince Andrew, royal connection. Johanna Schober testified that Prince Andrew put his hand on her inappropriately in Epstein's Manhattan townhouse in 2001 while taking a photo with her and Virginia Giuffre, with Maxwell and Epstein present. Giuffre accused Andrew of inappropriate conduct when she was 17. Andrew called the allegation baseless, but was forced to relinquish his military titles and public duties amid growing pressure. In February 2022, Andrew reached a settlement with Giuffre, agreeing to make a substantial donation to her charity supporting victims' rights. Peter Mandelson, former British cabinet minister and ambassador to the U.S., was fired over his ties to Epstein and is facing criminal investigation over claims he leaked market-sensitive government information to Epstein during the financial crisis. Other notable connections. In 2021, Bill Gates voiced regret for forming a connection with Epstein in the years after Epstein's 2008 conviction, calling it a huge mistake to spend time with him. Emails released in November 2025 showed Epstein kept up friendly relationships with Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary and Harvard president, physicist Lawrence Krauss, and others despite his status. The emails revealed continued social and professional engagement with Epstein well after his 2008 conviction. Leon Black, chairman of Apollo Global Management, paid Epstein $158 million for tax and estate planning services over their relationship. 4. Media and documentary coverage. Major documentaries. Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, Netflix 2020. This 4-part Netflix miniseries was based on the 2016 book of the same name by James Patterson. Released on May 27, 2020, it features interviews with several survivors, including Virginia Giuffre and Maria Farmer, along with former staff members and former police chief Michael Ryder. The series outlines Epstein's unlikely rise to the highest echelons of wealth and power, dissects his years of abuse of minors, and explores the network of enablers who supported him, including Ghislaine Maxwell. The documentary details how survivors were manipulated through a pyramid scheme run from his Palm Beach mansion, and how Epstein brokered an unprecedented lenient plea deal. Ghislaine Maxwell, Filthy Rich, Netflix 2022, directed by Mike Baird and Lisa Bryant, the same filmmakers behind the Epstein documentary. This film was released on November 25, 2022. It centers around Maxwell's trial and details how she assisted in recruiting teenage girls who would be deceived into performing inappropriate acts. Surviving Jeffrey Epstein, Lifetime 2020. This 4-episode docuseries covers the arrest of alleged co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell and features survivor testimonies. Who killed Jeffrey Epstein? Investigation Discovery. This 3-part documentary examines theories that Epstein was harmed by others as part of a cover-up by his elite associates. The special includes interviews with victims, legal analysts, journalists, attorneys, and former Epstein colleagues. Victoria's Secret, Angels and Demons, Hulu, 2022. This 3-part docuseries examines the rise and fall of Victoria's Secret and its former CEO, Leslie Wexner, with particular focus on Wexner's relationship with Epstein and what role Wexner's fortune may have played in Epstein's alleged network. Investigative Journalism. Miami Herald Perversion of Justice Series, 2018. Julie Brown's Pulitzer Prize-nominated investigative series exposed Epstein's 2008 plea deal and sparked renewed public interest that ultimately led to his 2019 federal indictment. Brown's investigation led to the arrests of Epstein and Maxwell and the resignation of U.S. Labor Secretary Alex Acosta. She later expanded her reporting into a best-selling book. Books. Filthy Rich by James Patterson, 2016. Best-selling account that was adapted into the Netflix documentary. Perversion of Justice by Julie K. Brown, NYT best-selling book building on her Miami Herald investigation. Too Famous by Michael Wolff, 2021. Included interviews and recordings with Epstein. V. Key legal and investigative findings. Epstein Files Transparency Act, 2025. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was passed by the 119th United States Congress and signed by President Donald Trump on November 19, 2025. The law requires the Attorney General to make publicly available in a searchable and downloadable format all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in the Department of Justice's possession relating to Jeffrey Epstein within 30 days. Legislative process. Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky, filed a discharge petition in September 2025. On November 12th, the petition received the minimum 218 signatures needed for Republican and 214 Democratic representatives, forcing a House vote. Trump initially opposed the legislation, but gave his blessing once passage became inevitable. Release and controversy. The Justice Department missed the December 19th deadline. On January 30th, 2026, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced the release of more than 3 million pages of documents, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. The DOJ subsequently discovered over 1 million additional documents, delaying complete release. Many files were heavily redacted, drawing criticism from congressional lawmakers who called for investigations into the DOJ's handling and threatened to hold top officials in contempt. Representative Ro Khanna stated disappointment with the partial nature of the release, noting missing documents including the government's draft indictment and witness interview memorandum. Banking settlements. In May 2023, Deutsche Bank agreed to pay $75 million to settle claims by Epstein's victims that the bank was liable for supporting and facilitating the organization. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing. JPMorgan later agreed to pay $75 million to the U.S. Virgin Islands government to settle claims linked to Epstein's activity. Ongoing investigations. Peter Mandelson, former British ambassador to the U.S., is facing criminal investigation in London over claims he leaked market-sensitive government information to Epstein at the height of the financial crisis. This scandal is threatening the government of British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Leslie Wexner is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee on February 18, 2026, about his connections with Epstein, following revelations that an internal FBI document from 2019 labeled him as a co-conspirator. 6. Controversies in public debate. The sweetheart deal and justice system failures. The 2008 non-prosecution agreement remains the most controversial aspect of the Epstein case. Former federal prosecutors described the plea deal as completely unprecedented and completely indefensible, noting they had never seen a deal that lenient in such a case. Key questions raised. Why did federal prosecutors grant such lenient terms despite substantial evidence? What role did Epstein's wealth and connections play in the outcome? Why were victims not notified in violation of federal law? A 2020 Justice Department investigation concluded that Acosta's decision constituted poor judgment, though he faced no criminal charges. Death in custody. Official determination versus public skepticism. Epstein's death generated unprecedented public skepticism. Public opinion polls show only 16% of Americans believe the official determination, 45% believe alternative explanations, and 39% are unsure. Factors fueling skepticism. Multiple systemic failures at MCC. Camera malfunctions in and around his cell. Violation of jail protocols. Left alone, guards not checking. Claims of compromising information about powerful figures. Conflicting expert opinions on autopsy findings. Official position. Inspector General Michael Horowitz directly addressed speculation, stating that while there were failures at multiple levels and Epstein received special treatment, the official determinations stand with no evidence of criminality. Elite accountability. The case raised fundamental questions about whether America has a two-tiered justice system. Epstein's contacts govern nations, build economies that enrich themselves while sidelining others, and imposed futures dominated by their technologies. Many were aware of Epstein's associations, but faced no consequences. Unresolved questions. Who else was involved in the network? Why have no other individuals been prosecuted beyond Maxwell? What role did financial institutions play in enabling Epstein? Were government officials complicit in covering up his crimes? redactions, and transparency. Congressional lawmakers and survivors criticized heavily redacted file releases, with Representative Robert Garcia accusing the White House of engaging in a cover-up protecting Epstein's co-conspirators and powerful individuals. 7. Cultural and global impact. Changes to law and policy. The Epstein case prompted several institutional reforms. Crime Victims' Rights Act enforcement. The 2019 ruling that prosecutors broke the law by not notifying victims reinforced protections for crime victims in federal cases. Prison reform scrutiny. The Justice Department Inspector General's findings of systemic failures at MCC led to increased scrutiny of federal detention facilities and prevention protocols. Non-prosecution agreement review. The controversy over Epstein's 2008 deal raised questions about the use of NPAs in cases involving powerful individuals. #MeToo and survivor empowerment. The Epstein case became intertwined with the #MeToo movement, providing a platform for survivors to share their stories and find strength in collective action. Survivor Maria Farmer began painting again after years of trauma, creating portraits of other survivors holding paper dolls representing girls who never came forward. The case demonstrated that even the most powerful individuals could face accountability, though survivors emphasized that Epstein's death denied them full justice. Public trust in institutions. The case significantly damaged public confidence in law enforcement. Questions about why investigations were delayed or compromised. Financial institutions. Banks' facilitation of Epstein's activities. Elite networks. The extent to which power and connections shield individuals from consequences. Media. Initially limited coverage despite years of allegations. International ramifications. The Epstein scandal has rocked governments beyond the United States. In Britain, the scandal threatened the weakened government of Prime Minister Keir Starmer due to Peter Mandelson's criminal investigation, and permanently damaged the British royal family's reputation through Prince Andrew's association. Ongoing cultural relevance. The phrase, "Epstein didn't kill himself," became a cultural meme reflecting widespread public distrust. The case continues to generate documentary productions examining different aspects, congressional investigations, and file releases, academic studies on power, privilege, and justice, public discourse about accountability for the wealthy and connected. As analysis noted, while the elite partied with Epstein in the Gilded Age when the 20th century flipped to the 21st, many Americans not in the club were experiencing hardship. The case crystallized perceptions of systemic inequality. Legacy. The Epstein case remains unfinished. Despite Maxwell's conviction and the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, fundamental questions persist about who else participated in or enabled the network. Survivors continue advocating for full transparency and accountability, emphasizing that justice remains incomplete while questions about the full scope of Epstein's crimes and his associates remain unanswered. The case stands as a cautionary tale about how wealth, power, and connections can subvert justice, and how survivor courage and investigative journalism can eventually pierce even the most formidable walls of privilege. There are many files, topics, and events we don't know about, and we only learn as much as they want us to know. We will always delve deeper and learn more. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.